Listening. I think it's something we can all improve. Let's look at what Epictetus wrote more than 2,000 years ago. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. Do we do that? Well, let's be honest, not as often as we should. Here's a more contemporary remark by Stephen Covey. He says it's the biggest communication problem. We don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. Stephen Covey is the author of that best-selling book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Listening is even more complicated when we consider this. Man invented the spoken word to avoid having to say what he really thinks. So can we be really sure about what we're listening to? Professor Abric, a leading French social psychologist, says that listening starts with being in the right frame of mind. There are 4 things that you need to consider. You need to be authentic, which means you need to show a genuine interest in what the other person's saying. You have to accept that they may be different from you and hold a different opinion. Unbiased is perhaps the most difficult one, as when you don't agree, the other person can usually feel it straight away. And finally, empathy, which means in this case, understanding from their point of view. Now, don't get me wrong, all of this doesn't mean that you agree with what's being said, but you need to understand this. You have to show that you appreciate what they have to say. So, clearly, active listening doesn't start with your ears, it starts with your attitude. Let's take a closer look at this word attitude. If we put a number on each letter that represents its position in the alphabet, so A gets a 1, as it's the first letter, it's followed by a T, which is in 20th position, and there are 3 of those. I is in 9th position, so that adds up to 70. Then we have a U, 21, that gives us 91. We have a D, 4, and an E, 5. And that adds up to 100. So the right attitude is clearly 100%. So we now know that we need to get our attitude together before we even dream about listening. Simon Sinek, author of many books, and notably Start With Why, has noted that great leaders always speak last in order to take in and understand the different points of view before they speak. So how do we get the other person to speak first? Well, a silence usually works well. Good morning. It's your turn to speak, huh? Or simply ask a question. Once you get the answer to your question, you can use the 5 tools. But bear in mind, you can't listen well if you're thinking about what you want to say. So the hard part is you have to empty your mind and focus. That's the secret of active listening. Example, you start with your question. So what's the feedback out there on the field concerning the new project? Well, we got quite a bit of resistance, which we weren't expecting, and quite a lot of questions too. Tool number 1, repeat a word that you've just heard. Resistance. Yeah, they were not happy with this particular aspect of the project, and you see, you will get more information. Then you can move on to tool number 2, start a sentence, then stop, based on what you've just heard. Concerning the questions, were they constructive or... And they will tell you. The more they talk, the more you'll pick up information, and you'll soon know where and how you can come in. Listen to the words they use, how they express themselves. Do they have a sense of humour? And the next 3 tools will encourage them to speak more freely. Onomatopoeia. Make a noise. No, really? Nod your head. The technical term for this is a regulating gesture. Doctors do this a lot. Aha. It usually encourages people to speak. And finally, don't interrupt a full silence. Example, I went to a restaurant last night. It was called, and what do? We butt in and talk about something else. So don't interrupt. Just wait. Even help them. The other person, nice guy. They will feel that you're with them. And I can confirm you'll establish a much stronger relationship. So there you have the 5 tools to improve your active listening. Repeat a word you've just heard. Start a sentence, then stop. Onomatopoeia. Nod your head. Don't interrupt a full silence. To conclude, don't forget when you talk, you're only repeating things that you know. When you listen, there's a good chance that you might learn something. Thanks for listening. Take care.